part of infrastructure. What is new about AI from a computer science perspective is that the way computing was done in the past was largely retrieval-based computing. Somebody typed in a story, or somebody created a piece of art, or came up with 4 versions of a digital ad, or it's all pre-built by somebody, which is then using a system to retrieve the appropriate version for you. It's a retrieval-based computing model. Hadoop and many of the frameworks and operating systems of the past, all designed to retrieve the appropriate information for you. But today, software is going to be generated in real time. It's generative. Based on the context, based on the circumstance, based on who you are, based on the problem you asked, based on your prompt, it will generate unique content for you. Every single time, for everybody, it's unique. When you use Grok, every time you use it is different. Just based on the right, based on the prompt that you give it, and based on the circumstance, and so therefore, it used to be retrieval based. Today, it's generative, and if it's generative, then and every time is different, then you need AI factories all over the world to generate the content in real time, which is the reason why you need AI factories. And this is a unique way of doing computation, but the benefit, of course, is that everything isn't preconceived and pre-documented, and it's contextually sensible and therefore intelligent.
So AI factories and robotics, and we heard it yesterday from His Royal Highness, his vision, how to augment our workforce with roughly tens of millions of robotics to be able to infuse the next wave of productivity and progress. But this scares a lot of folks here when it comes to the future of jobs. So let's hear about your thoughts, Elon and Jensen, on that.
Sure. Well, if you say like in the long term, where will things end up? Long term, I don't know what long term is. Maybe it's 10, 20 years, something like that. For me, that's long term. My prediction is that work will be optional.
Optional?
Optional. So...
We'll take that.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be like playing sports or a video game or something like that. If you want to work, in the same way, like you can go to the store and just buy some vegetables, or you could grow vegetables in your backyard. It's much harder to grow vegetables in your backyard, but some people still do it because they like growing vegetables. That will be what work is like, optional. Now, between now and then, there's actually a lot of work to get to that point. And I always recommend people read Ian Banks' culture books to get a sense for what a probable positive AI future is like. And interestingly, in those books, money doesn't exist. It's kind of interesting. And my guess is, if you go out long enough, assuming there's a continued improvement in AI and robotics, which this seems likely, the money will stop being relevant at some point in the future. Now, there will still be constraints on power, like electricity and mass. The fundamental physics elements will still be constraints. But I think at some point, currency becomes irrelevant.
Jensen, any thoughts?
By the way, the NVIDIA earnings call is later today.
And by the way, since currency...
Cheers.
Elon just wants to share with you some breaking news. The two of us would like to share some breaking news. Let's see. I would say there's different horizons you could look at.
That was crazy.
Everybody's jobs will be different. I think that's for sure. How the students learn will be different. How people do their work will be different, obviously, because a lot of the things that we do mundanely or arduously or very difficultly are going to be done very simply. And so we're going to be more productive from that sense. One of the things that I will say is that for most people or a company, if your life becomes more productive, and if the things that you're doing uh, with great difficulty becomes simpler, it is very likely, because you have so many ideas, you'll have more time to go pursue things. It is my guess that Elon will be busier as a result of AI. I'm going to be busier as a result of AI. And the reason for that is because we have so many ideas we want to pursue, so many things that we still have in our backlog inside our company that we can go pursue. If we were more productive, we can get to those things faster. And so in the near term, I would say that there's every evidence that we will be more productive and yet still be busier because we have so many ideas. One thing that I will say, give you some evidence, is that, and I was just telling Elon about this earlier, radiology, for example, has largely been converted to AI-driven radiology, and there's some really great companies doing that. And the surprising thing is the prediction that all radiologists would be the first jobs to go was exactly the opposite. The trend shows that there are more radiologists being hired now as a result of AI. And the reason for that, if you take a step back, it's because the goal of a radiologist is not to study the images. The goal of a radiologist is to diagnose a disease. Now the studying of the images became so productive, they could study more images, study more modalities, spend more time with the patients. And as a result, they were actually accepting more patients. We're doing more radiology all around the world. We're doing a better job with diagnosing disease. And so that's kind of the near-term outcome of AI and productivity. And we'll see what happens long-term. You know, when currency doesn't matter anymore, just, let me know right before.
You'll see it coming. You'll see it coming.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Talk Williams, host and creator of Hip Hop 50th. I want to say good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whenever you might be catching this feed or not. And today I want to talk about AI. Can it work with us? I also want to talk about, or give congratulations, or at least recognize that Time Magazine selection of the Person of the Year under the category of AI, artificial intelligence, is the gentleman you just heard speaking, NVIDIA's own Jensen Huang, or Hong. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that right. I like to touch on technology this afternoon. I just like to take a look at a couple things like artificial intelligence, where is it? Some comments or some thoughts or ideas from you guys as well as myself on where is it in terms of the job market, the now, the yesterday, and the tomorrow. And what about education? Some considerations there, specifically with Gen Z. Gen Z is that age group that was born between 2007 and 2012, which is 2007 and 15 years for that, or 12 years up from that 15-year gap right there. And where are they now? They're 13 years old, they're 20 up to 28 years old. That's where they are. So that group right there that's going into high school, in college, coming out of college, actually just entering the workforce, some ideas or some thought needs to be given to Gen Z, because I think that they are facing I don't want to call it a freight train, but there's something coming down the track that just looks blurry to them right now because they're dealing with a shrinking market. Anyway, before I go further, I want to bring up a guest of mine, a friend of mine who's a technologist. He has a background with IBM. He's also an AI enthusiast, or at least let me say this, he definitely makes use of the tool in different domains outside of technology. So I want to reach out to this brother and bring him up and have him weigh in and give some of his thoughts, or at least try to bounce off of some ideas from you guys and myself on what we think. Yeah, that's my primitive way of doing it, man. I'm not using AI. I'm actually calling somebody on the phone. Billy T, what's up, man? What's good?
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Okay, I think you should be live. I don't have an engineer, audio man, or a light man, but according to the gauges, everything that's popping up, you should. Okay. You're coming through our live stream, and I wanted to reach out to you and get your thoughts and ideas on AI, where the market is today, something about jobs as well as the education. Okay. The thing I wanted to ask you initially was you aware that Time Magazine came out with its person of the year in terms of AI.
I heard about it.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know. I was just perusing, and I guess the things I look at, the algorithm pushes it up in my face. But it's none other than NVIDIA's Jensen Huang. What do you think about them choosing him?
Of course. I guess my personal thoughts on it was, who else but him? And from my perspective, it's the world acknowledge people who are doing what I'll say is great things, and the greater the thing you're doing, the more acknowledged from Mr. Huang's perspective. Matter of fact, in current times, he probably is the equivalent today of what Intel was decades ago. That his company, the NVIDIA chip, they've kind of cornered the market in they're the current for chips, or for the faster chips and for the AI technology. So because he's kind of cornered the market, at least for right now, in that area, then yeah, he probably has the biggest splash in terms of persons who are impacting where we are with AI today.
Yeah. Up on the screen right now, guys, you could probably see, excuse me, a metal beam or some beam, and this is from a historical picture. Time magazine actually used this image, and they actually put maybe 8 of the most impactful people in terms of artificial intelligence, or their companies, or their technical contribution, or the both, on this beam. As I understand it, well, let me just give you some brief history with me. I actually was spending some time in Savannah, Georgia, and they have the JW Marriott down there on River Street on Savannah, Georgia. And how they have it set up, it's a museum. Okay, so everywhere you go in the Marriott, it's just a whole block of it. You're inside the hotel, but you're inside of a museum. And one theme of it is 3 different themes. One of the themes in the area is called the industrial age. And in the industrial age, they actually have a mock-up of images or models sitting on the beam, with the backdrop being New York City or wherever that place was, and people of all colors and races sitting there, about the same number of people you see here, with their lunches, eating, drinking something, different things like that, which I understand was just the thing to do back then. But of course, on this beam right here, they actually have the faces of, you could guess if you can't see them close enough, NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, Anthropic's Dario Amodei, of course, Elon Musk, Meta, formerly known as Facebook. You have Mark Zuckerberg. You have AMD's CEO. I think her name is Sue, I forget her first name. So you have all of these players right here, all of these contributors and founders of the major AI companies, or at least the most recognized or impactful ones. But here's the deal. Let's get to jobs. Let's just talk about jobs for a minute. There's something called an iceberg index. And I'll just move that out the way. And what you can see on the screen now at the top image, it says, can AI work with you? Now you guys can go and just look up Iceberg Project. Iceberg Project, they're the ones that came up with this iceberg index, if you want to say. And what's behind it is MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, along with some other organizations, foundations, and institutions of higher learning. And what they basically did, they took LPMs, large population models, and they combined that or indexed that in with some registered agents, meaning if you go to, like, I think it's the NANDA registry where you can register the agents. And so the population that they have here, if you look at the far left, let me zoom it out so you can actually see. So starting from left to right, you'll see a population there. It says human population. Imagine that. I mean, this is real. This is not a cartoon. This is not Netflix. This is not Marvel. This is real. It says human population, 151 million. Now, what that number is representing is they're looking at 151 million people who actually are in the job market. They're working. So they span these individuals across 923 occupations. And within those 923 occupations, you have 32,000 skill sets. That's what you have, okay? So again, think about it that way, all right? This doesn't require math, just a little thought. 151 million people, they're the human beings. We're gonna span this across 923 different occupations that will cover these millions of people that are in the workforce. Now, what are the skill sets? What are they doing? It's 32 different thousand skill sets. Okay, that's the human population. When they ran that, they indexed that, and then they did a mock of that in the agentic world of AI. Iceberg AI population is currently 13,741. Last index September 30th, 2025. Now on the surface, because the giant font says 13,741, you might be looking at it as compared to the 151 million. No, that's misleading. The number to consider that against is the 32,000 skills. That's the number to consider that against, the 32,000 skills. Because essentially what they're doing, what they're saying is, if we look at the 923 occupations that can cover the 151 million people, it involves 32,000 skill sets, not as what they are saying that they do, what has been identified through ADP, through HR packages, through job descriptions, and different things like that. That's what it is. So based on the tasks that they perform, right now, AI agents can do almost 12% of those tasks. That's what it's saying. Now, what does that mean? That means that for one occupation, it might only represent 5% of what that individual do. For another occupation, it might represent 85% of what that individual does. It's just being indexed. But really what's happening here is there's a virtual world, a agentic world, a world of AI agents that are mimicking real world jobs, the real world economy in terms of that. Billy, what do you think about that? Have you done any research or even looked into this iceberg index, or what are your thoughts?
So at the very surface, yeah. So I haven't done a lot of research, heard about it, but yeah, it's like I said, for me, just looking at this indexing, as you said, and you cleared up something for me as well, that we're looking at that 13,741 as compared to the skill sets, and that right now they're at 11% or almost 12% of that number. Like I said, that number is not going to do anything but increase.
Yeah.
And then so as it goes up, as it's going to go up, and it's probably going to go up in a fairly condensed period of time. It's not going to take another year for that number to increase substantially. What my takeaway from it is once again, AI is here. It's not coming. It is actually here. And for people who might be fearful, skeptical, hesitant, what should I do? What I would do, what I do myself, is how can I fit within that paradigm? It's no longer a shift. It's here. How do I fit within that? What I have to do is kind of focus on where can I fit in the AI spectrum? And in my case, as you know, Todd, so law is something I do a lot of. Where does AI help me or augment what I do so that I can fit in the spectrum? So the numbers themselves, the numbers only mean something to somebody who's totally on the outside of it. If you're trying to move down that path as it is, then all you're going to do is try to, where do I fit in here? And so that's my approach. That's my approach. That's the approach I tend to talk to my children about, as you know.
Yeah, definitely that. We're going to speak more on that in terms of what you do and your communication with your Gen Zers that you have, right?
I do.
And yeah. It was a comment, I just pinned it, made by Noel at Void_1. And I found that interesting. When the black hat people decide one day and say enough is enough, everyone is going to cry wolf and beg for companies to rehire human beings, not AI. Now, I found that comment interesting for two reasons. One, the point of it, meaning, crying wolf, let's get some human beings back in here. And there's some sentiment of that already, at least to the point where they're saying we cannot get rid of the human beings as quick as we thought. So there is some things going on with that. There's no doubt about that. But the other part, when he says, when the black hat people decide. And the reason why that caught my attention, that's interesting, I was dating this woman, and she works with NSA at one time. I mean, she still does, but when I was dating her. And I remember her going to some conventions in California, somewhere out on the West Coast or whatever, and she was telling me that she's attending, that year she couldn't attend the black hat. She was attending maybe the red hat. It was a different color hat. And I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, red hats, my association with that is definitely Linux and whatever, the open source. And then she was breaking it down differently, and she was excited and she was pumped up. She was like, I can't wait till next year. I'm going to be attending the black hat, because whatever it is she needs to do to be considered for that, she would be there. And I was just like, okay, I just found that interesting. So for him to say that, for Null_Void to put that, which even that handle says he knows something about tech. If he's putting Null_Void in the same handle, that's cool. But anyway, let me play this little clip. Was you getting ready to say something, Billy?
Yeah, I was going to say, if I can jump in real quick on that. You're talking about the young lady at NSA. That example is exactly, it underscores what I said previously, that you've got somebody who's kind of embraced where she's at within her career, and she's excited about what's coming next.
Yeah, she was definitely, yeah.
So to the comment that Void_1 put in there about the black hat people are going to beg for human beings to come back. When I started in technology, it was 1984. I'm working for IBM at the time, and I don't know about the audience and their knowledge of their understanding of technology, but in 1984, there were no widespread desktop PCs at all. Microsoft and Apple were fledgling companies at the time. There was no Google, there was no internet, at least no public internet, right? So when I look at what happened between 1984 and 1991, we went from, I started in technology in 1984 working on mainframe computers. And I don't know, most of you, if you don't know what a mainframe computer looks like, think of a metal box that's probably 3-4 foot wide and about 6 to 7 feet tall. And then think about that one module of the box probably being, say, 5 to 7 feet long, and you got 3 of those connected. That was a computer, a mainframe computer back in the day. And we went from that to mini computers, which looked like a kind of a washing machine, a little bit more square. Mm-hmm. And then from that to desktop PCs within the next 5 to 7 years. So from 1984 to 1991, we went from the old to the new. And for me, again, that's kind of how I see this, that the time frame it's going to take for us to go from wherever we are today to that next, in most people's minds, it might look like a quantum leap, right? Wherever we are today to that next leap, the time is happening, and it's happening now. Once agentic AI, at least in my mind, talking, you can correct me if I'm wrong, agentic AI or any AI, the thing that it doesn't have is it doesn't have feelings about what it has to do. It doesn't have a need for sleep, food, and things like that. So as the jobs are able to be pushed over to the AI side, on the human side, they're going to go away, but we don't need to be fearful of that like I said, figure out the opportunity. Where does AI fit in, and where does it augment your skill personally? And that's all I got for now, Doc. Sorry about that.
No, that's cool. I think that's one of the goals of the AGI, or some form of a higher intelligence of this so-called artificial intelligence. They want to reach a point where it is sentient. Sentient meaning that now it appears that it is emotional. And the barometer, or one of the barometers of that, is not that it's emotional. It's the experience of us as a human being in our interaction with it that's going to determine that. And that's going to be really important. That's where they're headed to. I just put an image at the top of the screen, guys, when Billy was talking about in 84, 94, 2004, when he was talking about when he was with IBM, or the sizes of the computers. Even though today, or the other day, Time magazine announced that Jensen Huang, the founder, the guy who owns NVIDIA, is the AI person of the year. Here's an actual historical clip from Time magazine that in 1950, Time was recognizing and actually giving a machine learning, or some form, an earlier form of AI in 1950 as an award. And then if we bring it up from 1950, you can see right there in 1992, it's the desktop PC, it's the computer. And that's in 82, and then we bring it up to 2006, and they're talking about cloud, or whatever the innovation was then towards it. These three awards actually speak towards the machine learning, the AI as we know it today, and that thing will continue. Because some people were thinking, oh, Time magazine just came out with this for AI. Nah, pump your brakes on that. Do a little research. They've been giving out these types of awards. Now, the accuracy and who should have got it is one thing, but the fact that they exist is definitely something else. I want to play this little clip to give you guys an idea about how real this iceberg index is. Again, guys, what the iceberg index has done is they basically did the analytics and metrics and mashed up a combination of large population models down to some agentic registries. But let's listen to Sarah, one of these guys from CNBC. Let them talk about it for a second. I'll be quiet. Let's let this play.
Researchers at MIT just out with a new study about AI and productivity and just how many jobs could be at risk. Mackenzie Sagalis joins us with that story. Market pays attention to these MIT studies on AI.
Yeah, that last one on 95% of enterprise adoptions of AI not working out. Now MIT has built agent clones of 151 million working Americans, essentially software counterparts to real people, in order to identify which jobs are most at risk years before layoffs hit. Now, it's called the Iceberg Index, and it uses these agents to map more than 32,000 skills across 923 occupations in 3,000 counties, revealing exposure to AI displacement in every state, not just coastal cities. The report shows that while only 2% of AI-driven wage disruption is visible in tech hubs today, there's actually a hidden layer of exposure that is 5 times larger than what we see today, cutting across industries and geographies, hence why they call it the Iceberg Index. Now, findings indicate that AI can already take over tasks tied to nearly 12% of the U.S. labor market. That's about $1.2 trillion in wages, especially in careers tied to healthcare, finance, and professional services. For lawmakers preparing billion-dollar reskilling and training investments, the index offers a detailed map of where disruption is forming down to the zip code, and crucially, a way to run what-if scenarios before they commit real money and legislation. You've got states like Tennessee, Utah, and North Carolina, also co-authors on this new report, that are already using Iceberg to test everything from new training programs to skills-first hiring rules before they formally commit to policies and spending. Guys?
I'm amazed at this story, Mackenzie, and this money quote that you use, where they argue that we're basically creating a digital twin for the U.S. labor force.
But researchers do stress that this isn't a countdown clock to layoffs. It's more of an early warning map so that policymakers can move money and training around before the shock hits. And so the coolest component of this report is the fact that the Iceberg team has built an interactive simulation environment that allows states to actually experiment with different policy levers, from shifting workforce dollars and tweaking training programs to actually exploring how changes in tech adoption might actually affect local employment and GDP. Tennessee has been the furthest along with this. They've actually built their own AI and work dashboard that tracks occupational exposure and wage effects across the state, and that's helping currently to guide its policy and spending decisions.
All right, well, let's hope Elon Musk is right then, that we won't need money or jobs.
Because work is optional?
Yeah, think about that, work being optional. Yeah, Billy, so I wanted to jump back to your Gen Zers, the ones you love, the ones you brought here. And,
right.
And I'll say this, that your oldest son, I remember asking him months ago, did you look for a job, you know? And I said, how many applications you sent out? And he said 100, 200, or some number that just kind of caught my attention, surprised me, you know. And but the reality of it is, those jobs are and may not be there. What are your thoughts on that?
So since Billy is in the computer information technology program at college, and he graduates next December, he's walking into an entry-level position in the tech field. And we're talking about technology. We're talking about AI. And so what I and we have been trying to talk to him about is you got to kind of forecast what that future is going to look like. He says he wants to be a coder or programmer, and even today, right now, you can jump on any LLM system, whether it's Chat GPT, Legal GPT, whatever it might be, and go out there and ask a question. Can you code something? As a matter of fact, an example that I showed him is I went out there and I put a prompt in. I said, write a program that does X, whatever it was that I said we were going to do. But I said, write that program in C, write it in COBOL, write it in Fortran, write it in C#, right? I gave it probably 12 languages, and it took it all of, I don't know, a minute to 2 minutes maybe to write the same program in all 12 languages. And entry-level programmers, that might not be the gig. They may shadow somebody who's more experienced. But what it showed him, or what I tried to show him, is I said, listen, you're going to have to broaden your mindset in terms of how you see your future in this field, because that entry-level job that maybe was available today, it won't be available a year from now. And so that's what I did with him. In terms of my think about Buddha, Olivia, my daughter. She's an English major, English and marketing, as a matter of fact, and she's in college as well. And Olivia walked into college with another project going on. She's been writing her own book, and manually, just her writing got up to, I think she got up to 80,000 words. So she's writing a novel. And so talking to her about the same thing, about how does AI impact her ability to write a book? Anybody who's actually even played around with AI, you can go out to again, any of the models that'll do it for you and put in a question. Here's the start of my book, the story of my life. Here's the backdrop of that story, and literally tell or ask or direct AI to write the book for you. And so for her, she's not as directly impacted by as Billy was, but that goes back to something I said earlier as well. She can use AI to augment or speed up her ability to write and her ability to get her ideas into a meaningful way where it results in words on the page. So that's just a couple of examples for both of them. Like I said, one's a senior, one's a junior in college.
So I think that your daughter has an advantage, even though she's not in the field,
Okay.
that your son may not necessarily have, just based on what you said, not based on what I know. And the reason why I say that is because, believe it or not, world, the people who have strong reading skill sets, who are strong in language, in their English, believe it or not, they have the slight advantage. The reason why they have the slight advantage is because they are going to be able to mesh and organically engage with AI tools more readily and in a robust way. They will be able to excel in not only its adoption, but its understanding and identifying the value, because they have that language literacy understanding thing going on. So anybody that can write that, you know, of course everybody can write a book, but when we're talking about English majors and we're talking about people that read and we're talking about that's what they do, they have the advantage because they could shop that skill set and drop that on any particular domain where they could readily use the AI tools and resources to augment whichever direction they're going in. That's what I mean, just based on what you said. Go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt there, Todd, but I was going to say, so this is a perfect time to talk about one of the things, at least that I do, right? Because you talk about Olivia's ability to write, right? Her ability to understand language because she does it every day.
Yeah.
That gives her advantage, and I have to agree with that. And I speak about that. If it's okay, I'm going to talk about law a little bit.
Sure.
So just this past year, and for everybody listening to this live, I'm not an attorney. I don't have a college degree. I spent 30 years in the technical field from 1984 to about 2013. And so since 2013, I haven't been in the technical field. I've done some work here and there, but nothing to speak of. So for the most part, I'm out of tech, modern tech. I touch it here and there, see it here and there, but that's it. But going back to something else, I've been involved in law for over 20 years. When I say involved in law, I'm not a lawyer, obviously. I don't have a license. But what happens is if something creates a circumstance that pulls me into court, for years, for almost 20 years, or actually nowadays, I guess it's closer to 30 years. So for almost 30 years, I would go to court, not being an attorney, but being able to read and trusting my ability to understand what I'm reading and to apply it. In the early days, on the fly, to me, it looked kind of chaotic, but I was able to hold my own in court. But I wanted to mention this, going back to the opportunity, going back to the augmentation. Just this past year, literally a month ago, I was involved in a legal issue for the last 4 years that ended up at the U.S. Supreme Court. And for those who don't know, cases that get before the U.S. Supreme Court have a 1% chance of being heard. And this year, I believe they expected about 9,000 cases to get to the U.S. Supreme Court. You've got a 1% chance. You have to be one case in 90 in order to get heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, again, remember, I'm not an attorney, and my case didn't get heard. So let's not put that out there like it did. But here's the significant thing about AI. Because I already have the foundational base of what law is, and I can understand it, as Todd talked about the English and interpreting it and apply it. What I used AI to do is to augment what I wrote. So what happened this year for me is once I submitted my documentation, my brief to the U.S. Supreme Court, I made it past the initial cut. That initial cut cuts 95 to 98% of the cases. And though it may not sound significant, but I made it to what they call the conference. That means that the 7 justices, or as I believe actually happens, the clerks of the 7 justices get together and decide we're going to take this case, but we're not going to take that one. So imagine that a non-attorney was able to use AI to augment the writing and the conveyance of the idea to the point where I made it past the cut that most attorneys never make it to.
So let me ask you this. what
Yes, sir.
elements, what exactly, if you can enumerate some of the more significant ones, when you say made it past, what does that mean in terms of what did you do versus what you could have done or what typically would happen prior to you using AI that allowed you to move forward? Because before AI, people were making it there also, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
so go ahead.
So what I did in particular is I already had like I said, a grasp of the writing and things like that. But AI allowed me to imagine that you can go through a permutation, what's a different word for permutation? That's a math word. An iteration. It helped me out with the word, Tuck. I'm trying to make this simple.
Just a permutation. Like when you think about permutations and combinations, it's just different routes and ways to do things. It's like different ways to calculate or perform a combination.
Yeah, so perfect. So one of the simplest things, and I'll use permutation in terms of the lottery. Most people have heard of the lotto, 6 digits or whatever it might be, but there's a certain number of combinations of results that you can get with those 6.
Right. So what did you do? Like just enumerate kind of high level, what was it that you were able to do that allowed you to move forward and get past that?
So to get past it, what I was allowed to do, imagine that I wrote my initial argument and I read it and I said, okay, that looks okay. But let me ask ChatGPT to rewrite that argument, right? And I would prompt it, rewrite it, but focus the argument on this point. So it would rewrite that argument and I'd read it and I say, okay, well, that's not quite what I want. Imagine that I was able to probably kind of reconstruct that argument, who knows, probably 10, 50 times within a very short window. And I mean, when I say short window, I'm talking about days. And this is any given day I'm on. Let me rewrite this, and I can and check the actual AI allowed me to reconstruct an argument that it was already completed. And under normal circumstances, I would have submitted it. But I had a chance to fine tune that argument, the whole argument.
Understood,
and my argument, I think, to them was maybe 15 to 16 pages.
Okay.
But I was able to fine tune that argument with AI. It helped augment my writing to get me past that earlier, like I said, the first cut at the U.S. Supreme Court.
So it sounds like AI in that sense became your proofreader. It became somebody that could critique it, give you some constructive criticism, save you time, so increase your proficiency, and it gave you that confidence that, okay, I'm not really concerned about my human labor in and of itself. I can maximize my human labor because I have this tool, I have this assistant, I have my coworker or my staff right here in a sense as an agent.
Absolutely, all that.
So normally, if we take away AI, now I'm dealing with manual labor, my mental energy as well as my physical, how much time I have to do these different iterations or versions of it. And now that luxury of being able to tweak is minimized somewhat. And I'm restricted to, unless I have a budget, I'm restricted to my ideas, my thoughts, my struggle through the internet as we know it, and the access to different things like that. So we're talking about time, raising the bar, and that luxury. So is it? And I mean, those are big things right there, because it wasn't just I can go to AI. It was like all of a sudden AI played several roles. Even though you was going to the same AI, it was playing several different roles. So if you had, go ahead.
Just to jump in real quick,
Yeah,
Todd.
I just want you to highlight so everybody could understand what that is. You know, the concept. What was the benefits? Yeah.
Right, and the thing you hit on something about the AI playing several roles. But here's the core piece that had to be there. Another person could put in the exact same question that I put in terms of AI and law. But if you don't have foundational knowledge in the area that you're asking about, then all you can do is take what AI gives you. Whereas for me, because I did have the foundational knowledge, I was able to at least look and say to myself, what AI gave me back wasn't quite what I needed. So there, AI is not, it's not sentient yet. It's not where it does its own thing and thinks for itself. So that's where the augmentation comes in. Recognize that AI can't do it for you today, but for the person who's actually committed to the growth, committed to the using of the AI, to the self-augmentation, you can actually, like I said, you can save time, energy. As Talk knows, I tend to find myself up any given day 17, 18, 19 hours a day. And as a human being, there comes a point in time where the energy just crashes. If I have an idea, I can just put that out to the legal GPT, the AI, and know that it's going to come up with something and jump back on after I get some sleep. But like I said, that whole speeding up of the time, allowing you to refine it in a way that humanly, there's no way for me to have done the level of refinement that I did. I couldn't have done that by myself. And here's the thing, I wouldn't have considered doing it.
No, there was options. Yeah, those wouldn't have been options. Yeah.
Right. I'm not getting ready to sit here and say, okay, it took me 2 weeks to do that. Let me go ahead and try to do this differently. No, it's not going to happen. But that's probably the biggest, that time thing and allowing me to assess the overall brief, how it was written, and then to get it reassessed 10 times, 20 times, 30 times before I actually turned it in. That significantly helped me get through. If I can mention one last thing, Todd.
Sure.
You also were talking about you talked about budget. Budget is important for anybody who ever does anything about law. Anybody who's ever had to go to a lawyer, I need a consulting fee, I need a retainer, that's what happens. So budget matters. But imagine that for the vast majority of the legal work that happens in the country, that work is still being done by individual attorneys. And I say that to say this, that your budget is going to get you to a regular attorney. I've actually interacted with attorneys I'm opposing them without having a degree, but I have AI as a partner. And it literally exposes, like I said, why even law? I think they said personal services are impacted by AI. Those personal services encompass law. And so the budget at the low level, right, the majority of the cases in the country, that budget is still going to get you to a human being, and that human being may cut corners and all this kind of stuff. And like I said, if you look at law enough, you'll see the corners that are getting cut. But if you understand AI can take what they say, what they write, what they do, what they give you, and say, hey, I'm going to review. It reviews what they gave you, and you can ask it, what's the best strategy to attack this? And it'll literally give you the idea.
Yeah. So I want to add this to the things, your experience and what you do with that. The thing is, like you said, AI is not a panacea. That's what it's
Correct.
not. Okay.
Right.
In terms of augmenting being to improve the work that you're doing to make better. There's this thing called a cognitive offload. That's the term I like to use. And basically what it can do for you, it can do. It really has nothing to do with you as the individual. The AI can do it. Where it comes to a consideration as us as the individual is, what do we currently know? What is our experience? What is our knowledge base? As Billy said, what is our foundational knowledge or experience about a particular domain or profession, in this case, law? He already knew law to a certain degree. He already had different experiences and knowledges, and his growth in that field was there. So when Billy uses the tool of AI, he's going to get a different result. He's going to be able to use it and approach it differently because he's going at it with experience. He's going at it with a strategy, with an idea. Where people might be getting thrown off as is, okay, this is the magic genie, this is a panacea, I can know nothing and get it. That's the mistake, especially when you're talking about law, engineering, your career, and different things like that, because that's not the purpose of the AI. That part ain't here yet. It's coming, but it's not here yet. So that's why Billy is able to get that use. he's able to get the best of both worlds, him as a human being, AI to augment what he's doing and save the time. And actually, if you index the amount of money, think about how many times Billy said, this is it, but not quite. This is it, but I like to look at something different. This is it, but I still have more time left. Let's rewrite it. Let's do this. Now turn that into communicating with your law firm, your lawyers. How much money would that cost? That's it. Just, you couldn't compare it.
And Talk, if I can say about the cost, that what you just described would be cost prohibitive. There's no question.
Yeah.
Attorneys on average probably charge $300 an hour. And if they're manually doing this, yeah, they're getting ready to empty your pockets. They're going to drop you as a client because you probably don't have enough money to keep paying them.
Exactly.
If I can real quick about cognitive offload and the law and lawyers, and everybody, don't think that because somebody has a certain position, and I'm talking about lawyers now, just because they've got their Juris Doctorate, they passed law school, they got their degree, they're practicing law, that somehow they're different than you. They're the same as you. And evidence of that was a couple years back.
But tied into AI though. Keep it.
Yeah,
I want
absolutely.
everybody to stay focused on the AI piece. I don't want them to drift off and think we're talking about law.
I'm gonna walk it right back into AI.
Right.
So a couple years ago, one of the first AI cases that I heard about was in the Pacific Northwest, Pacific Northeast, up in New England area. Two attorneys had used AI to write their brief. Going back to what you said, talk about the AI is not the panacea. It's going to come down to what your competency in your domain is. What the attorneys did is they put a request or a prompt into, I suspect it was ChatGPT at the time, and said, hey, write this brief based on this criteria. And it wrote the brief. They took the brief, they turned the brief in. What would happen is the other side looks at the brief, and as lawyers do, they want to reference the cases that you cited. What they found is that AI created cases. So you've got guys, and there were two guys, you got two guys who have been lawyers for, say, 10 to 15 years each. But they didn't know how to use AI to augment. They thought AI was the panacea. And what they found is AI is only as good as the competency of the person who's using it. So again, if you don't know anything about something, you can use it and you're going to get a result. If you don't check that result, if you believe that AI somehow can read your mind and knows what it knows, then you could find yourself in those guys' position. And they ended up being in front of not only the registration board for the attorneys, but they were in trouble in court. So the last thing I'll say about that type is this. Courts will generally put out a disclaimer now. If you use AI to write your brief, beware that AI is not always accurate. That's the easy part. It hallucinates, which is kind of confusing for people to think, oh, how can a machine hallucinate? It's just like humans hallucinate. It's going to come up with stuff like it was drugged. But that is now at the federal level, and I haven't seen it at the state yet as much, but at the federal level, that is a disclaimer that they have on their websites.
Well, it's a disclaimer, period. Okay?
Yeah,
so I just want to say to everybody, don't worry about the law part. What he's saying is true. It's period. AI does not always and cannot always give the correct answer. And whether you're using it in the house to find out about some chewing gum, or you're looking at federal law, you're looking at SpaceX trip to space, the AI is not the gospel. It's just not. And, there's a couple things like Billy mentioned hallucination. Don't think about AI law hallucination. Get away from that. AI hallucinates. If you're doing law, it can hallucinate. If you're doing electrical, if you're researching water, it doesn't matter. Those things are tied to AI. I'm just differentiating, Billy. That's why I'm just making the point. I don't want anybody to think what we're saying is unique to law. We're just using law because that's what you do. But none of this is unique. It's not law. It's AI. Right. AI hallucinates, not the law. So when you're using AI, None of it might be true. Some of it might be true. And like Billy said, it depends on you, your profession, your domain. The hallucination is part of AI. It's not part of law. The biases that are built in to AI, that's AI. It's not built into any professional domain. One of the most difficult things for anybody to do is to sit and use Claude, use Google's Gemini, use OpenAI's ChatGPT or whatever, and put in a prompt and get a negative response, because the bias is built in. The prejudice is built in. It's programmed that way, okay? Now, the hallucinations are not. They're not built in. The hallucinations are a result of it getting confused and then context and different things like that. But all of those things that Billy talked about that he experiences, he benefits from, and he wants everybody to be aware of, that's AI. That's not law. So just keeping that in mind. Now, here's the thing. Like he said, his son is into technology. He's a technologist. He's, whether it's coding, whether he's going to be a data scientist, whatever it is. This image that I have up on the screen now is a infographic, as they say. And it's crazy because in terms of coding and high-level tech jobs, the 11.7% of what the MIT's study or research of Iceberg Index was 11.7% of jobs that it could do now. Only like 2% of it is technology jobs. The rest of it is finance, HR, and other jobs like that. That's the thing you want to keep in mind. Now, people who currently have a job, people who currently have clients, people who currently have businesses, to be honest, you're in a good position. The reason why you're in a good position is because you can do what Billy does. Billy already knows the law. He has years of experience. He uses AI as a tool. You can use AI as a tool. That's different than what his kids, the Gen Zers, are facing. They may not get the opportunity because yesterday's entry level ain't today's entry level, ain't tomorrow's entry level, and that's what they're going to be facing. So, Billy, let me ask you, what is the career strategy that your kids have expressed to you in terms of how they're going to approach coming out of college? What's going on with that? What's the ideas?
So, career strategy, I don't know if I'd call it that. And I'll speak. We'll start with Billy first, the technologist. So he's probably come to a realization that he's, I'll call it under-equipped, not ill-equipped, under-equipped in terms of how do I transition from what they've taught me in school to AI. One of the interesting things and maybe not so interesting now that I think about it, is he doesn't talk about any classes that are teaching any kind of AI. And I'm sure it would be kind of a cutting edge course, right? Since AI is really kind of blowing up in the public space over the last couple of years. But you don't hear about any AI groups. The only discussions about AI that Billy probably has the most is when he talks with us.
Okay.
And so it's almost as though, and Billy's a good student. He passing with a B average in his classes. In his core classes, he's doing a B. The other classes are just up classes. But the thing that from a career perspective, I guess his watershed moment is I might not have the skill set to be able to get employed, and I might be working security a year from now.
Okay.
So his whole goal right now is to try to bolster his knowledge in terms of technology. And the thing that I try to lean in on with him is I said, what you have is theory in terms of what the technological field is, what the programming field is. What you have to do is try to convert that into some type of how can AI help me not only do what I'm doing now in terms of my learning, but also even help him and guide him into a particular position domain that he wants to be in. So career path wise, it's kind of open-ended for him. Olivia is a little bit more narrow, as I said. She's in English. She may have an opportunity to extend her school years into her master's, and her focus is still getting her book done. That's the primary goal. So for her, she has a much narrower focus for the AI because her strength in her domain is clearly consistent and persistent. She's been writing this book at least for the last 3 years. So her, like me in law, she's focused in on that. AI can come in and help me rework a story, rewrite a chapter, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I remember asking her about AI before.
Right.
And it's cool to hear what you're saying now, because I remember asking her and she was like, nah,
Oh yeah.
I'm not with that. And I was like, I just sit back. I just, okay.
Right. One of the things I'll say is and there's a question, you can still hear the pushback to some degree now, but she's more aware that, okay, yeah, I can use it kind of the way you use it for law. I said, absolutely. I said, or you can use your own mental resources while you're trying to go through your school and passing finals and an RA, and you got all this other stuff going on, right? You got a small sliver of time that you can actually focus on your writing if you just focus on you being the writer. Now, if you take AI, let that augment you, that small sliver of time can amount to significantly more effort put in a collaborative way between her and AI.
Yeah, I think that AI, what my message to people is that AI can guide you if that's what you need, if you need that guidance. If you're coming from a space where you kind of whatever, and you're just looking for brochures or resources or ideas, and you're just brainstorming it, then you add some people of like minds, surround yourself around people and things, put yourself in places, and then you could use AI too, you know. But if you already have a base of where you are and you want to augment where you're going or what you're doing, then AI can be used as the tool you want it to be used as. For certain people, just use it to proofread it. Just use it to give you a version of copyright. That's it. Right. Why? Because the strength of something like an OpenAI ChatGPT is copyright. That's its strength. Does it do a million other things? Of course it does a million other things, but its strength is that. So when it comes to documentations, writings, contracts, or whatever like that, that's where you can get some assistance. Now this idea, and I'm just in quotes, but it could be wrong. Okay, find me a human that can't be wrong. Okay, that's gone. Yeah, but it can hallucinate. Find me a human that don't get what you're saying. Okay, so that's not what we're talking about. At least if you know that you're using it and it's not the gospel, if you understand that you're using it and it hallucinates, if you understand that you're using it and it's a bias written in. That's why when people say, you know, it do this, and said that, no, you kind of want to know something because it's going to tell you what you want to hear. So you got to know something so that when you get what you think you're looking for, you don't just get sent off down the wrong path. You have your own versions or your own guardrails in to make sure you can check even the feedback that is given you and be willing to say, okay, this is not right. This is out of context, or this isn't the direction, and you can interrupt in different things like that. So, go ahead. Go ahead, Bill.
Sorry. Interrupting, Todd. One of the cool things about this whole discussion right now is that everybody has a competency in something. Mm-hmm. So what we're not talking about is you've got to be down the technological path. You got to be down the legal path. You don't have to be anything. No, think about what it is that you have a foundational knowledge in. It can augment that thing. And the best of both worlds is to find that thing you have what we call in the non-AI world, you have a passion for, but it doesn't necessarily pay you today. and see if you can figure out how to use AI to augment that to where it can earn money for you. But everybody has something that they have a core competency in, and we're not just talking about jobs that it's not about the fact that you're a graphic designer or you're a secretary. There's something you have a core competency in that you can use AI to augment. You just have to figure out what that is. You being the people on the call, the people in the world. You got to figure out what do I really like doing? What do I do a lot of?
So let me ask you this. So let's say for you, okay, give me 3 to 5 AI tools that are in your AI toolkit. And these tools, you could just name the applications and what they do, what you use them for. Not what they do, because if I name something, I could name 1,000 things it does. But your use case, what's in your toolkit?
Right. So right now, the primary thing that I use is ChatGPT, and I haven't fully created my agent yet, but that's on the horizon for the next.
And you
day
primarily use it for what? Tell me the use case.
So the primary thing I use ChatGPT for is my ideas regarding relationships and the law.
All right, so that means you use it for copyright, to write documentation, to produce writings, to literalize ideas or what have you. Yes. Okay. So, and that's one of his strengths. That's one of his main things that OpenAI's ChatGPT do. And I know and this is to the listeners, I know I keep mentioning the company and then the product. And the reason why is because the term ChatGPT or the chatbot is so generalized and commoditized at this point. When I'm saying ChatGPT, I just specify it for the listeners, not for Billy, because he knows that some people, they would say with ChatGPT and they never opened up OpenAI, they only use Gemini. But it's the same thing in that sense. But when I'm specifically saying OpenAI's ChatGPT, one of their core strength is copyright. I'm specifically talking about Sam Altman's OpenAI ChatGPT. But okay, and what's another AI tool you use, and what's its use case?
So down the same line, I use Google's Notebook LM.
Okay.
And the use case for that is, so imagine that you can have a writing, you can have a brief, you can have something, and let's say you want to have another set of eyes on it. Notebook LM allows you to upload an email, files, whatever it might be, and it can literally take that information and put it into a discussion format where in my case it's typically a man and a woman created from the actual LLM itself, the Notebook LM. But it can discuss your document almost in a like a podcast format, and it can get pros and cons, and obviously you can prompt it for what you want to hear, or just put it in there and say, evaluate this, and that's how I initially started. I'll take some files, I'll put it up to Notebook LM, I say evaluate this, and it comes back and gives me an audio evaluation of what it thinks about what it has.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd, one of the examples I know I sent recently is a discussion I had with Billy about the whole technological thing in the career and my take on where he was. And I put that, so literally what I did is I took a conversation that my son and I had. We were on Zoom because he's in college, I'm here in Chicago. And I took the Zoom transcript, the Zoom audio, uploaded it into Notebook LM, and it came back with some interesting comments. First of which is it talked about some of the things that it heard from the speaker, Billy being the listener, I'm the speaker. That's a pretty harsh comment to hear, when you're being, somebody's guiding you.
Yeah.
And so it comes back with some pretty human interactions, but it's a perfect way to take information that you have that might be written or might be audio already, and give you a kind of a third perspective on what it looks like, and it'll present that, like I said, in a kind of a debate, discussion format that doesn't involve any human beings. It'll literally create the voices that are going to go back and forth. typically